Welcome everyone to this second day of the symposium of the Suitcase final event. And I hope I will be able to share my screen. Yes, that seems possible. So my name is Astrid Kappers. I'm from Eindhoven University of Technology in the Netherlands, and I'm one of the participants of this project. And today we have the second day of our symposium, Living Through Touch, Smart Haptic Communication for Inclusion, Accessibility and Participation. And we know that there are many people present from all kinds of countries in the world, so we really appreciate that for some of the persons it's very, very early, especially for those in Mexico and further west, but also for some people it's very late already. So we really enjoy that you are present here today. Before we start the symposium, I would like to give you a few details about the project. So Suitcase is an acronym and it stands for Smart, User-Friendly, Interactive, Textual Cognition Enhancer that yields extended sensosphere. And it was funded through the European Union Horizon 2020 scheme. Originally, we got funded for 3 years, but due to the COVID-19 restrictions, we got half a year extension, unfortunately without additional funding. So our project will officially end at the end of next month. In this project we have 5 academic and 2 industrial partners. So there's the University of Borås from Sweden, there's the Center of, now I have to move something, the Center for Research and Technology Hellas in Greece. There's the University of Offenburg in Germany, the University of Leeds in England, Eindhoven University of Technology in the Netherlands, Les Doigts qui Rêvent in France, and Harpo in Poland. And this project focuses on developing haptic, intelligent, personalized interfaces, which we call HIPIs, to aid people with deafblindness in communicating and perceiving their environment. And this whole symposium also is organized around this topic. So it's a 3-day symposium. Yesterday we presented the results we obtained during this project. Tomorrow there will be a day about policy study results and policy related discussions. And also we will spend time discussing what will be next. So what can we do beyond Suitcase? But today we will talk about related research. So that will be presented by researchers in the same field of research, but not connected to the Suitcase project. We will have a session on networking, and we have the second half of today, bridging the gap. Now, to give a few more details about this program today. So we will start with related research. We will have 2 sessions on that. And it's about development, well-being and lifelong learning for individuals with dual sensory loss. Then at 2 we have a session on networking. And from 3 o'clock we, and these are of course all European, Central European times, we have 3 sessions on bridging the gap, results, development to usable products. And we will have technology companies present their work. We have available accessible technology for user perspectives. And we will end at 5 with a panel discussion. Now, before we go to the symposium, I would like to mention a few things. So if you have questions either during a talk or at the end of a talk, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen so you can enter your question there. We will either give a live answer to your question, but if there's no time, we will later, or maybe already during the talks, give an answer in text. If you need captioning, you can access the live closed captions using the transcript button, also at the bottom of your screen. If you would like to speak, so if you have a question, please let the chair know that you have a question and use the raised hand button. We cannot guarantee that you will be given the opportunity to actually speak, because we have a tight schedule and we find it very important to keep close to this schedule. If you have the opportunity to speak, please state your name and affiliation so that we know what your background is and where you are from. But for now, I will end with saying I really hope that you enjoy the symposium, and I now give the floor to Marleen Janssen, who chairs the first session. Thank you.
Thank you, Astrid. Dear colleagues of the SUITCEYES project, I'm very honored to be here and to present with 6 presenters a part on related research, which we recently published in the special issue of Frontiers in Education. If you are interested in that, you can find that very easy with Google on the title of this session. If you can not find it, I will give in the pre-recorded session more information about it. And I hope, because all my younger colleagues who are also involved in this special issue are here today, and I hope they will help me with answering the questions, because I'm not that technical as you all, but I hope you enjoy our presentations very much. And I'm looking forward to your reactions. Enjoy. Dear colleagues, I am Marleen Janssen from the University of Groningen in the Netherlands, and I'm very honored to speak here at this final event of the European project SUITCEYES. I thank the organizers for this invitation. They asked to tell something about my research, but I found it a better idea to share with you several studies also from other colleagues, which are recently published in a special issue on their blindness in the Journal of Frontiers in Education. And now I try to share my screen with you. And here you see a link with the whole collection of 20 articles on the theme Development, Well-being and Lifelong Learning in Individuals with a Dual Sensory Loss. The co-editors of this special issue are, besides myself, Timothy Hartshorn of the Central Michigan University in the USA, and Walter Wittich, who will be there today too, of the University of Montreal in Canada. Many different types of studies were performed in this pioneering research area of deaf blindness. The study of today are a very small selection, but they will cover several subgroups of deaf blindness, namely congenital deaf blindness, acquired and age-related deaf blindness, Char syndrome, and Usher syndrome. I'm very happy to introduce to you the presenters. Before the break, I will share with you a study on layered communication in persons who are deafblind from birth. My colleague Saskia Damen will present her study on social validity measures, which is relevant regarding research in communication. Andrea Wanka will present a study on the identity development in people with child syndrome. After these 3 presentations, you have 5 minutes for asking questions live online. We have to see if that works. But Saskia, Andrea, and me will be here live for you. After the break, Walter Wittich will give you his own interpretation of 3 studies on the importance of assistive technology for people with acquired and age-related deafblindness. Moa Walquist will share with you 2 interesting studies in relation to health and quality of life in people with Usher. And last but not least, I'm very happy to introduce to you Lisa van der Mark, a young lady who is deafblind and who will comment on 2 studies on tactile interpretation, and she will give her comments on that from a pro-tactile movement viewpoint. She will do that in sign language. Also, after these 3 presentations, we have 5 minutes for answering questions. Walter, Moa, Lisa, and me will be there live online. In the near future, we will make an open access ebook of this special issue for Frontiers in Education. We want to organize a broader research symposium with all the research in it. But I hope you enjoy our presentations here today. The first presentation is about the layered communication model, a study of Kirsten Woldhuis, who is a PhD student of me. The article is about an intervention study with 8 student-teacher diets based on video observations. The students' ages range from 4 to 18 years, and they are all deafblind from birth. The aim of the study was to monitor communication development over time. Teachers in practice asked us for a tool which can support assessment on the communication level and to formulate goals for communication development. The theory on intersubjectivity of Bratton and Trevartin was used. In this theory, emphasis is on interpersonal aspects of communication development based on self-other awareness in 3 levels or layers. Damen used this theory also in her PhD studies. I shall explain the different communication layers and the 8 behaviors studied by Woldhuis and colleagues. On the level of the first layer, the focus is on the other, which corresponds to development in typical children from 0 to 9 months. Like you see here on the picture, where the mother makes clear movements with her mouth and the baby is observing. Behaviors at this level are, for example, imitation, mutual attention, sharing of emotions, and turn-taking. On the second layer, which corresponds with typical development between 9 and 18 months, both partners share interest in objects. On the picture, you see caregiver and child pointing to a painting on the wall and talk about that. Behaviors at this layer are joint attention and naming, such as naming of objects. In the third layer, the basic phase corresponds with a developmental level in typical children of 18 months to 3 years. The focus is on symbolic communication. For example, partners communicate about absent things and people. The advanced phase in this layer corresponds with a level of 3 to 6 years and is focused on perspective taking. For example, partners understand each other's minds and emotions. Concerning the method in this study, the researcher did only a quantitative analysis of the data, and she analyzed the presence of behaviors per diet in 4 videos taken before intervention and 4 videos after intervention. And she did a group analysis on differences between diets. An intervention was performed consisting of self-assessments and 2 sessions of video feedback coaching. For more information about the intervention, see the article. Results demonstrated that the first layer serves as a basis. Imitation was often used as means of confirmation to maintain lively communication. And if you are interested, you can read much more information about this first layer in earlier studies of our research group in Groningen. The layered communication model can indeed be used not only to determine a diet's communication level, but also to monitor communication developments over time. A limitation in this frontier study of Woldhuis is that it was not focusing on improvements of communication. So Woldhuis and colleagues investigated in another study the content of the intervention related to the effectiveness of communication improvements, and they analyzed that in a quantitative and qualitative way. They did it with the results of 4 diets from the earlier study. It was demonstrated that this model was effective not only to monitor, but also to improve communication development. To make it a bit more concrete, I give you 2 examples of the content of coaching. For diet 2, to improve symbolic communication and sharing of emotions, the coach suggested to the teacher to use more natural conversations about the fun they shared on the swing the other day. For diet 3, the coach suggested to the teacher to improve perspective taking by communicating about her own experience in the weekend and bring pictures from her own home to school. Talking about these experiences stimulated the student to take the perspective of the other, in this case, the teacher. For the content of this intervention, you have to wait on the next publication and the PhD thesis of Kirsten Woldhuis. She will defend her thesis on the 3rd of June at the University of Groningen. This defense will be partly in English. So if you are interested in that or in the thesis, please let me know. If you need more information, you can mail me on this address in the PowerPoint, and full references are there too. Thank you very much for your attention. Now the presentation of Saskia Damen can be played.
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Saskia Damen. I work as an assistant professor at the University of Groningen and as a senior researcher at Royal Dutch Cantalis in the Netherlands. And I will present social validity measurements in communication research and involving people with congenital deaf blindness. And I will now share my screen. So, communication is one of the most important areas of intervention for people with congenital deaf blindness, and communication research is an area of strength in the field of deaf blindness, according to Bruce and her colleagues, who published a review on the state of the art regarding the evidence base of communication interventions in this field in 2016. The authors, however, also concluded that a lot of work still needs to be done to build sufficient evidence base for communication interventions in this field. And in this presentation, I want to make a plea for not only measuring effects, but also to gather data on the social validity of communication interventions in the field of deaf blindness. In the study that I will present today, we did not only consider if a communication intervention caused positive changes in interpersonal communication, but we also evaluated the intervention with communication partners of individuals with congenital deaf blindness. Because, as Carsten states, positive changes of an intervention do not necessarily mean that the intervention has sufficient social validity. And here you see Carsten's definition of social validity, which is the extent to which the focus of the intervention and the behavior changes that has been achieved meet the demands of the social community of which the individual is part. And when we look at how social validity measurement is carried out, we see that such measurement usually focuses on three aspects: the acceptability of the intervention focus, the acceptability of the intervention procedures, and the satisfaction with results. And in educational research, the measurements are usually carried out using a questionnaire or an interview with parents, caregivers, or teachers. Strain and Dunlap explain how they use social validity data for intervention and research purposes. They ask parents to formulate what they thought were relevant goals to achieve for an early intervention program for their child with autism spectrum disorders. And they use this information to make the program better fit with these goals and for the effect measurement. In a recently published study in Frontiers in Education, we aim to gain more insight in the social validity of the high-quality communication intervention. This is an intervention in which communication partners of individuals with congenital deaf blindness are trained in supporting the interpersonal communication of these individuals. And we compared social validity ratings with observational effects of the intervention, and this gave us also more insight in the value of social validity measurement. And in the following slides, I will share with you the method and the results of this study. So 11 participants with congenital deaf blindness took part in the study and 25 of their communication partners. All the partners received 2 training sessions and 5 individual video feedback sessions of a coach. And in between the sessions, the communication partners worked on improving specific communication aspects that were selected as intervention targets. And you can see these aspects here on the slide. Each of the 25 communication partners filled in the social validity questionnaire at the end of the intervention, and we developed this questionnaire in an earlier study. Subsequently, we analyzed the mean ratings on the subscales relevance, feasibility, and subjective effectiveness. And we also calculated the mean ratings for single items of the scale that matched, of the questionnaire that matched the 6 communication categories that were set as intervention goals. Observational effects were determined by continuously coding communication categories that were intervention goals. For all participants together, a total of 286 videos were coded that were taken before or during the intervention. Subsequently, the effect sizes were calculated for each of these categories using the non-overlapping of all pair technique of Parker and Van Est. To compare the observational effects with the social validity results, Spearman correlations were calculated for each communication category on the level of the single participants with deaf blindness. And this means that we analyze if there was a significant correspondence of the observed effect size for a communication category for a participant with the rated relevance of the intervention according to his communication partners, the rated feasibility of that communication category, and the rated effectiveness of the intervention for that category according to the communication partners. I can't give you all the data because of limited time, and I will give you a short summary. We found that the high-quality communication intervention was rated as relevant, feasible, and effective. Observational results showed effects in all cases, while there were interesting differences found in the ratings of specific aspects of the intervention and also for the feasibility and effectiveness of single communication categories. Video recording was rated less relevant than communication support and the provision of a communication coach. Dyadic interaction received the highest rating for feasibility and effectiveness, and sharing emotions the lowest ratings for both feasibility and effectiveness. And we did not find any correspondence between the effect sizes of communication categories and the ratings for relevance, feasibility, and subjective effectiveness. In our discussion, we stated that the combination of observational social validity data enabled a critical analysis of a communication intervention in the field of deaf blindness. And it's interesting that there was such a correspondence between the ratings on feasibility and subjective effectiveness. And this suggests that the extent to which communication partners felt competent in supporting aspects of communication of people with congenital deaf blindness, their self-efficacy, so to say, influenced the extent to which they experienced the intervention to be effective for that category. Thanks very much for your attention, and you can see here my contact details.
Today I'm talking to you about charge syndrome, communication, and identity building. Charge syndrome is a genetic syndrome with a recognized pattern of features and involves extensive medical and physical challenges. It is recognized as the most common cause for congenital deaf blindness. I'm presenting on results of a case study which focuses on the development of identity of individuals with charge syndrome. This is of concern to individuals with charge syndrome themselves, their parents, and the various professionals that provide support and service. A review of the literature demonstrates that the vast majority of research regarding charge syndrome focuses on the medical, developmental, and family structures. However, identity research shifts the paradigm to the individual and the unique personality, which encourages professionals to apply their support or services to the human being rather than the disability. With the analysis and presentation of the single case study, some progress can be demonstrated in figuring out the role of this diagnosis to one's understanding of the self. Of course, the limitation of a single case or sample of one, coupled with the heterogeneous nature of the population, generalizations cannot yet be made. Now I would like to talk with you about the purpose of the study. Although identity development remains relevant during the entire lifespan, psychosocial theory suggests identity is primarily formed during the period of adolescence and emerging adulthood. Therefore, it is understandable that this case study focused on a youth age, so it will be about a young man of 22 years. As I said, most of the research rarely includes the voices of individuals with Charge syndrome. The literature is nearly absent of reflection from individuals with Charge syndrome, other than from a position on medical and therapeutic aspects of their experience. However, if more was known about these individuals from their perspective, as to how they would like to live their lives, we could better judge whether our educational approaches and our programs for individuals and families are appropriate. So this study focuses on yielding accurate information to understand young people with Charge syndrome by providing an opportunity for them to give their voice space and provide a means of expressions regarding who they are and how they see themselves beyond their diagnosis. Understanding who these individuals are beyond their diagnosis provides us information relevant to the provision of support and intervention. This single case study is entitled "This is Me," and it's an effort to achieve this goal. Let's have a close look at the theoretical frame. So one is Bourdieu's theory of capital. The theoretical framework for the understanding of this identity formation and social networks in this project is based on that theory. And the term capital is referring to resources. According to ABE, subjective resource management, which is defined as an individual's perception of available and unavailable resources, and the resulting identity work can be readily viewed through the lens of capital theory. Bourdieu differentiates between economic resources, cultural resources, and social resources. And these three primary types of resources can be transformed into one another. Within the theoretical frame, core narrations were used for to further identify, analyze, and organize findings and represented a means of triangulation. Gergen and Gergen define core narrations as those parts of identity in which the subject on one side tries to get to the point, and on the other side tries to tell this to others. A well-formed core narration has 5 characteristics. Meaningful endpoint, focus on relevant events, narrative order of events, occurrence of causal links, and boundary signs for beginning and end. Core narrations represent the personal meaning of identity areas. Let's step to the methods. The primary strategy for data collection in this study was the use of the collage life elicitation technique, the CLAT, from Sharkwick, where the subjects tell their own life story through a protocol in which the individual renders their meaningful life experiences. And this structured approach fosters expressing physical, cognitive, and affective changes that result in psychosocial consequences. It identifies the development of dialogical relationships between individuals, groups, and cultures, as well as the dialogue of multiple internal voices, where Herman has some positions about. And this allows the expression of different I positions. An individual can develop an alternative point of view or perspective as they are guided to remember their own life story. And as a result, their story may be reconstructed and coordinated with social expectations and personal goals. And CLAD is a tool that serves in collecting life stories and in analyzing self-defined memories. This method utilizes scaffolding memories of one's own life story and helps to overcome typical obstacles in autobiographical memories and the narratives of life stories. One of the primary vehicles to stimulate memories within the CLAD is the use of graphic representation. The reason for the use of pictures or text fragments is to have additional sources and modality other than the dialogue-based conversation of an individual's life story. And this seemed to be very suitable for the group of people with George syndrome, since pictures or text fragments are a visual-based system and a sustainable form of expression. Creating a collage is seen as a valid social action, a representation or narrative performance in which talking and thinking as well as not conscious acting is implemented. CLAD is based on the theory of social constructivism, symbolic interactionism, and the authority of images. It serves a deeper understanding of symbolism, informing the narrative meaning-making process. And this means that CLAD reflects a post-structural view on narrations. In the picture you can see the 5 steps of the CLAD, which you can read further more on, but due to time I will not get deeper into them. As already mentioned, this study used a single case study approach, using one subject to conduct an in-depth analysis of the emerging identity of a young man with George syndrome. Using the CLAD technique, János, I called him János, that's not his real name, was studied for the purpose of gathering critical information to describe his current and past life journey, which is referred to as an identity project. It must be noted that János was one of 13 individuals between the ages of 15 to 32 years that participated in a CLAD process during the German George Conference in 2019. And János progressed through the CLAD by creating one collage that combines the past and the present. He selected 12 pictures that represented significance within this his current and past life. Following the creation of János' collage, he participated in a 50-minute interview. And this in-depth interview used the service of a sign language interpreter and was videotaped with his permission. Here you can see his collage, and the numbers were done in the interview. So he and I talked with each other, and he gave them the hierarchy or the chronology, and he also added to the pictures some written stuff. So this was from him. The analysis of the data gathered from the CLAD technique involved 3 steps. First, the collage was analyzed for its role as an intervener, as an inventory of meaning and metaphors, thereby representing a type of transcript of the collage. For every picture, a text fragment, an inventor of meaning, connotations, or metaphors was implemented. A focus on the contextual clues reflected in this symbolic meaning, as well as the manner in which the picture were arranged. Secondly, an analysis of the narrations was completed with a story map, with a focus on key elements like time, locations, and setting. The analysis used a comparison of similar meanings. These were further analyzed according to connections between persons and things from past and present. The third step in the data analysis process was the creation of a story grid. The story grid is a 4-column table in which meanings, metaphors, self-defined memories, and additional information is mentioned. You can see this in the picture. Now a little bit on the results. I just called it co-narrations. Within the single case study, it becomes clear that János does not associate his core identity with George syndrome, but rather from an alternate origins of self. János demonstrates through this research process that the relevance of animals and the topic of tolerance take a leading role in the formation of his identity. Furthermore, and unexpected, János' participation in the manga's community serves as a primary source of social and emotional support, forms his construction of togetherness, and strongly influences his concept of the relevance of family. This is in contrast to the role in which friends often impact these components of one's own identity. The specialized methodology used in the study demonstrated that individuals with George syndrome can be active participants in identity research that realize rich and accurate data. I want to sum the co-narrations with the topics given by János, the single case. So he emphasized the importance of friends who have George syndrome, of friends who are deaf, and of friends who have no disabilities at all, meeting especially in contexts like conventions. Then the hearing world. His family is hearing and some friends are hearing, and he's deaf. So there were a lot of aspects which were relevant to him. The family who is learning sign language, and parts of family who are not learning sign language, and the influence on his identity. And in his current identity projects, you can assume that, referring to the interview, the family is not playing a big role. Like often when you're youth or young adult, then there are other relevant factors. George syndrome and other people with George syndrome, he has a very strong friendship to one other young adult with George syndrome, which influenced him very deeply. But and the rest, George syndrome has not the relevance which could have been expected, especially as we did the interviews during a George conference. Timing analysis. You can look back over time due to the pictures, and it is clear that János used his experience with being bullied in a pertinent identity as a pertinent identity resource. This was very important for him in building up his identity. Although this experience was one of rejection and fear, János is able to see the value of interacting with other people, in being helpful, and in being a loyal friend. So this is just a glimpse to some of the results. I would like to thank you for listening, and more information in the article and in further research being published. Thank you.
So, are there live for you?
Actually, maybe everyone can write their questions in the QA, and in the next session we can answer them or in writing already. Is that okay? Because
that's okay with me and Astrid. That's okay with us. So great. I think we have a break now then, or?
Yes, we will have the 15-minute break so our interpreters have their time, and then we'll be back at the hour.
Okay, see you later.